Hello, how are you doing today? My name is Lavender, and today I want to talk about how to break out of our shells. A shell that I see a lot of young people put themselves in, myself included, is the MBTI personality test. Although I don't like to say this, but I myself am an INFT, and it used to be INFP, but now it's INFT. And my friend actually asked me the other day, she said, why is it that I took the MBTI 3 times and every single time it came out as something different? She said that it must be something wrong with the test because if it was accurate, then my MBTI can change, right? But I stand that it's absolutely normal that your MBTI changes constantly because, well, you're constantly facing new situations, and in different circumstances, your reactions will be different. Um, and I think that personality tests, they only reflect in that instant or in that time period who we are. But a lot of people take those things to heart and they think that, mm, well, if I am this way, or if other people perceive me as this character, then I shouldn't act out of line, or it would be wrong in a sense to change. Um, I've struggled with this a lot. um, it was interesting because I never really realized how much of an influence my parents had on me until I had this one conversation with DeepSeek, actually. um, I don't really quite remember what we were talking about. I think it was something to do with why Oriental and Western cultures are so different and why there's so much conflict. Um, but I asked DeepSeek. I think it was what are the differences between the core values of these two cultures? And DeepSeek replied, there is something called an interdependent self and an independent self. Now, an interdependent self will more base your personal value around a community, something that's bigger than yourself per se. So, with these types of core values, the keywords you often hear are responsibility, um, like honor, or uh, camaraderie. That's interdependent self, and um, an independent self would be someone that would more ask, what would I want to do? So the keywords you would hear would be dreams, desires, self-value. And I thought that that was really interesting because that explained a lot as to um, why I often had, up until that point, felt that what I wanted to do and what I had to do were two very separate things. And I think it finally revealed to me that I placed my value in what my parents thought, more than I should probably. um, but I digress. That's a story that I've been telling myself, something that I believed in concretely up until that point, that what my parents wanted me to become was a dream that I had to achieve, or it was my primary goal. And that's just a story. Um, and to break out of this shell is something that I need to do. These shells, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. It could be what you look like, or what your personality is, or what your talents are, or what your hobbies are. It goes on and on and on. We're constantly surrounded by these stories, by these shells, by these characters that no one necessarily forced upon us, but we took it upon ourselves to become. And I think that in order to become a better person, or to achieve your best life per se, we need to learn how to rewire our brain when we come to these situations that we need to decide who we are. So I've summarized a few tiny little tips on how we can rewire our brain, and I've made an anagram. It's conveniently called BTS. The first one is B, to be conscious of your time. I know that a lot of people certainly have this problem of looking at your phone and you tell yourself, oh, it's only going to be a 5-minute scroll, and then you look up and it's half an hour past. That constantly happens. And I think that the core reason for this is that while we are watching our phone or while we are doing a leisure activity, our brain tells ourselves that, oh, this doesn't count, or this tiny amount of time, it cannot matter in the wider spectrum of things. And so we indulge and we do this thing that we don't necessarily want to do, but we do it. And that is true for a lot of other cases as well, where we think that we need to be some sort of person, and that this tiny little action that I take right now, it cannot possibly matter to me in the whole lifetime of mine. But that's not the case, and we need to be conscious that life is an experience that we are having at every single moment. It's not something that's way in the future, or it's not something that's far away. It's every single moment, and we have to be conscious of that before we can take any action. And so the second one, T, think before you act. This is very crucial. Our brains, they feed off of patterns, and inertia is the smoothest way to create a pattern. When we have inertia, we do things without necessarily considering it or even doubting what we are doing. We take the path that's the least friction, and then our brain calls it done, and we just follow a set path for us to go on. So I think that in order to break out of your shell or break out of your story, you have to think, is this what I want? And what is it that I want? And for this thing that I want, how will I achieve it? And when we are done with those things, then it's time to turn back to the task at hand. Is this the only way to solve it? What other ways are there? How have other people done it? It's very important to accumulate this thought process before we make decisions, because the stories that we write, they need to be thought through. A book that's written without thought is a stream of consciousness. It's not a story. It's something that you unconsciously dawdle because it's the easiest thing to do. And when things feel like they're going too smoothly, it often means that you stop thinking about the process and you stop analyzing. And that's when the shell closes in on us. And the last one, S, stop thinking and just act. This is a very big part in taking action, in actually doing things. It might seem contradictory to the last one, but in reality, what this means is that after you have had a long and lengthy thought about what it is that you want to do and who it is you want to become, it's time to put all of that away and now think about the moment. What is it in this moment that I want to do? You don't have to think about your whole lifetime. That is too long. Just think about this very moment, this very action. What do I want to do? And I think that after the thoughts that you have had in the last step, it should be very clear. Your decision should be very clear to you whether you want to take this action or what action you want to take. And lastly, I want to tell a little story about my attempts to break out of my shell. So with the new school year, I'm currently in my junior year, and At this point in time, not a lot of students decide to join clubs, but I decided to join the school choir. And it stemmed from a chain of actions that I thought through and then decided to take. But I joined this choir, and without surprise, there were no other junior students, all sophomore, or no, all freshmen. And when I joined, I felt very anxiety stricken because prior to this, I'd never sung in front of people before. And the first time that I did during that audition, with those 10 or I don't know how many people looking at me, my voice cracked and it shivered. But surprisingly, I got through the audition and I joined. And it was unlucky because right after that, I had to go and do my rural expedition kind of class, and I couldn't attend the choir for a week, which is 2 practice sessions, 6 hours. And I immediately started doubting whether this was the correct step to take, because it seemed that even though I had thought through about why I wanted to join the choir and why I wanted to take this step towards music, it seemed that I wouldn't have enough time to do this project. After I came back from the expedition class, I went to the practice session, and it was simple. I sang along just as everyone else did, without any looks or scoldings from the teacher. It was jubilating. I felt very happy. Being part of choir is a great thing. To be part of a group, to know that everyone is present, and to be a part of something greater. I think that it aligned with my personal values very well, and it made me feel very content and brought me back to life. Or no, it brought me back to my awareness of life. Through this very tiny little story, what I wanted to say is that you shouldn't be afraid to take new steps. No matter how hard they may seem, it'll turn out okay in the end, because you've taken that step. And if it succeeds, then it's a win. And if it fails, then it's experience. And trust me, when you take that step towards becoming you, towards becoming something that's not a character, something that's 3-dimensional, that's deep, and that's filled with layers, you'll be infinitely more happy.